I met my girlfriend on Facebook last year. She had liked and commented on my pictures. I checked out her profile and I liked the way she looked. And so I sneaked into her DMs and we started chatting. We hit it off immediately. And within a month of chatting her, I proposed to her and asked her to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. Now, I'm 26 years old and she's 22 years old. Let's call her T. I live in Accra and T is in Kumasi. A week after we started dating, she told me she wanted to come and visit me in Accra, and I asked her to come. When she came, I should have known her plans by how big the bag she came to my place was. The same day she came, we made love. T was very good in bed. I've never seen any other girl do the positions this girl can do in bed. She told me she would be spending a couple of days with me before she went back, and I was happy to have her around. She cooked really delicious food, and since she came during the weekend, I had no work, so we made love morning, afternoon, evening. Now, even though we've been talking on the phone for almost 2 months at that point, I didn't really know much about her. It was during her visit that she told me she was an orphan and that she has no one. She said she has been fending for herself since she was a child, and that at the moment she was staying with her best friend in Kumasi. Let's call her best friend Em. She said Em has been there for her like no one ever has. She was in the streets doing nasty things to survive when she met Em, who was also another street girl, but she had a kiosk she was sleeping in. Em asked her to move in with her, and she said she moved in with Em when she was around 15 years old. Em found a job for her to do and gave her a place to lay her head. She said Em doesn't play with her at all, and that she doesn't know where she would be in this stage of her life without her. I felt so sad hearing about her story. I really cared about T, and I told her she can rely on me too. She had told me she wanted to spend a couple of days with me, and then she would leave on Tuesday. Tuesday came, and T didn't make any effort to leave. I didn't want it to be as if I'm sacking her from my house, and so I decided to give her a few more days before I asked her when she would be leaving. That weekend in bed, I asked her when she would be leaving, and she looked so hurt. She asked me why I was in a hurry for her to go. I told her it's not about being in a hurry. It's just that she told me she would be spending only 2 days with me, and it's been almost a week now. She told me she just enjoyed my company and wanted to spend more time with me before she goes. And I was like, okay, no problem. The truth was that I was beginning to fall for T. I loved being around her, and she made me laugh a lot. She cleans my apartment and cooks breakfast for me before I left for work. And by the time I came back at night, my dinner was ready. And every night in bed, this woman makes me feel like I'm in heaven. My life was perfect with her in it. So I was not in a hurry to see her go. She stayed with me for a month before she finally left for Kumasi. And by the time she left, I was crazily in love with her. She made me so happy. And I didn't want her to even go at all, but she told me she had some things to take care of. 2 months after she left, she asked me if I would be okay with her moving in with me temporarily till she gets money on her own to move out. I said yes very fast because I really enjoyed staying with her the last time she came over. And she moved in with me a couple of days later. I asked her what about Em because I knew they had a strong bond because she was always talking about her and her relationship with Em. She told me she felt it was time for her to be serious about her life and she was ready for a fresh start. She loved Em and they were still good friends, but she preferred to be with me instead. And the kind of job she was also doing in Kumasi was not really paying her that well. A week after she moved in, she got a job at KFC. And whenever she was paid, she would use part of her money to buy groceries for the house. T was the perfect girlfriend. She was very neat and organized, and her meals were always delicious. She was always in the mood to make love to me. She was very understanding, communicates her feelings very well, and was very forgiving. I introduced her to my mom a couple of months after she moved in, and my mom, who was very difficult to please, actually liked her too. T was my dream partner, and I felt so blessed to have someone like her. She still spoke to Em for hours on the phone, and once in a month, she would leave to Kumasi to see her. One day in bed, after we've stayed together for about 5 months, she told me she needed a favor from me. She said M was being evicted from where she was staying and she had nowhere else to go. Since M had been good to her, she wanted to ask me if I would allow M to move in with us for some time till she finds her own apartment in Accra. She said M has money to rent, but she was tired of staying in Kumasi too and wanted to move to Accra. So she would only be staying with us for a few weeks till she got her own place. If I had known M coming into my house was going to ruin what I had with T, I would have said no, but at the time, I didn't know. M was someone who had saved T when she had no one, so how can I say no to T's requests? And she was only staying for a few weeks. I had a spare room too, so I asked her to let M move in. When she came, I realized she was a bit older than T. She was more my age. She looked very shy and hardly spoke. She greeted me and thanked me for allowing her to move in with us. I nodded and told her to feel at home. The first day she came, she stayed in her room all day. I asked T if she was okay, and T told me M was a very quiet person who loved to be alone. I hardly saw her that whole week. She just came out of her room to eat and then straight back to her room. Now, 2 weeks after she moved in, I was in bed with T kissing, ready to make love, when she pulled away and asked me if it would be okay for M to join us in bed. I was shocked for a second, and I even thought she was joking. She smiled gently at me and told me M wanted to join us if I was okay with it. I asked her if this was a test, and she said she didn't mind it if I didn't mind it. I forgot to mention, it has always been a dream of mine to have a threesome, even though I have never told T about this fantasy. Now, tell me which man will say no in this situation. I asked T if she was sure this was what she really wanted, and she smiled wider, excused herself, and walked out of our room naked. In a few minutes' time, she came back with M, who was also stark naked. She still looked shy, but after she entered into the bed, she was like a new woman. I can't describe into details what took place in my bed that night, but it was the best experience I had ever had. After everything, T just said goodnight to us and left the bed. Everything happened so fast that I didn't really have time to comprehend everything. I asked T why she was okay with sharing me with M, and she said she knew beyond a doubt that I loved her. And she also knew M was not the type to snatch me from her. She said this was just something special she wanted to experience with those she loved. This woman was just too perfect. I asked myself how I had been so lucky to get someone like her. Now, I leave the house for work every day and come home in the night apart from the weekends. Now, like I mentioned earlier, M and T are very close. Sometimes, even when I'm around, she spends the whole day in her room. She even sleeps there sometimes. They are best friends after all. So I didn't really see anything wrong with this. One day, I came home very late and I saw the two of them in the living room. M was sitting on the couch whilst T was lying on M's laps. And for a second, I was sure I saw M's hands inside T's blouse. It was just for a second after I entered into the house. They all turned and smiled at me and welcomed me home. I thought I might have been imagining things. T was in the kitchen cooking early one morning, and I was tired, and so I had slept late. I went into the kitchen and saw T cooking on the stove, whilst M was holding her from behind. The position they were in was strange, and if M had been a man, I would have been mad, but they were just two best friends. And I didn't understand their relationship sometimes. This was way before we had the threesome. Sometimes they bathed together too. But like I said, they were best friends and I really didn't understand girl friendships. A week after our threesome experience, I closed from work earlier than usual. I wanted to surprise T, so I didn't tell her I was coming home early. Only for me to get home, to see T lying on the sofa naked with her legs wide open, with M's head between her thighs. And she was also naked, by the way. My heart stopped beating and I shouted. They both turned to look at me and immediately stood up. T came to me, asking me to give her a chance to explain. M just said sorry and went back to her room. I walked into our room with T following me, telling me not to think too deep about the situation. She said it didn't mean anything and that I was the one she loved. She said M would be leaving that night as she had gotten a place in another part of the city. So she was just saying goodbye to her. Hey, can you imagine that? She was clearly a lesbian. Like, how long has this been going on between them? How could she betray me like this after everything I've done for her? She said she loved me, and that what I saw her doing will not happen again. She kept talking about how I was the one she chose since Em had asked her to move in with her. I don't know if I can ever trust her again after what I just caught her doing. This was a woman I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I don't know if I can ever see her the same way ever again, even though I still love her. Will I be the asshole if I end things with her and send her packing?